these headlines. It's crazy now. Shame on you, Isabela Ferrer.
What if I told you that Justin Baldoni just played his smartest card yet? A move so sharp it could erase Isabela Ferrer from the entire case. This isn't just about court filings. It's about pulling the rug right out from under Blake Lively's secret connection. Everyone thought Ferrer was the key witness, but Baldoni is flipping that script. Why would he want to silence her if she held the truth? And more importantly, why is Blake Lively fighting so hard to keep her in play?
Now you're like trying to paint him as this harasser because he subpoenaed you? Blake Lively subpoenaed you first! Make it make sense. So she's not harassing with her subpoena, but Justin Baldoni is. And now your lawyer is in conversations with Justin, but he won't accept it because he's got to find you first. This ain't Where's Waldo, girl. This is a real deal important battle, and you were there. Granted, you were there for 4 days, but Blake incorporated you more in the after fact. And so blame her, don't blame him. Unless you got an issue with him, then just tell us. This weird playing in the middle and allowing the press to now go negative on Justin without you ever even saying whether he did anything on set and whether Blake's telling the truth or not is kind of shocking. If you don't know, then say that. That's another answer. I don't know. I wasn't there. I didn't hear any of this. I don't know. I suspect she doesn't want to do that because then she'll go against Blake and Ryan, who are very powerful. So that's why I've always thought, well, she's in a tough spot. But this response from her, shame on you, Isabela.
So why is everyone suddenly whispering about a single piece of paper? Not because it's thick with legal jargon or because it was filed in some secret chamber. This was an ordinary court filing on the outside. But the moment insiders caught wind of what was actually inside, the buzz started spiraling faster than anyone expected. Think of it as a courtroom grenade hidden in a stack of official pages, silently waiting to explode. And when it went off, the debris didn't just scatter. It landed right on Blake Lively and Isabela Ferrer. At first glance, most people assumed it would be minor paperwork, just another bland filing tucked into a long legal battle. Lawyers shuffle papers by the pound in cases like this, and usually they don't mean much outside the courtroom. But then came the details. And those details weren't about scheduling or procedures. They carved a path straight into whispers of a connection most people didn't even know existed. Suddenly, what should have been a forgettable stack of papers became the only thing anyone in Hollywood wanted to talk about. Here's the twist. It wasn't just about dry case updates. The documents went out of their way to mention Isabela Ferrer in a way that repositions her from bystander to potential keyholder. Not a mere witness, not just a name on a list, but someone tied to Blake in ways the public hasn't been told. And this is where Baldoni's camp looked almost gleeful. To them, it wasn't just a line in a filing, it was a trap cleverly set in plain sight. Hollywood veterans have seen it before. Sometimes, a lawsuit turns not on shocking testimony, but on a line buried deep in paperwork. Think about those famous defamation cases or contract disputes that spiraled, not because of headline claims, but because of a single attachment. This filing had that same energy, the quiet piece of evidence that could spin the whole case around, which raises the question, if Blake had absolutely nothing to conceal, why is Ferrer's name suddenly threaded right through the middle of it all? That's the nerve Baldoni's lawyers touched there, selling this not as self-defense, but as strategy, showing the world they're several steps ahead, even inside the courtroom battlefield. By dragging Ferrer into the open, whether Blake likes it or not, the papers hint at something deeper than anyone outside expected. And that's the real sting. The secret isn't in the shadows anymore. She's teased in this filing as the one carrying a secret, the one whose role could change everything. But where did this quiet connection first spark? For that, you have to rewind to an eyebrow-raising subpoena.
Let's get to part 2 of this story because this is the response to that. Dear Judge Lyman, as counsel for Wayfarer Studios, Justin, everybody, etc., we write in response to Isabela Ferrer's opposition to the Wayfarer party's motion to serve her by alternative means for the pendency of this action. The opposition is primarily an inappropriate attack on Mr. Baldoni and his counsel in violation of the order dated on August 8th, relating to matters not before the court, i.e. the indemnification issue, meaning that Justin's team should pay for this because this is a movie issue, but it's not really what indemnification usually typically covers, as Ron Zambrano has told me. It's irrelevant to whether Ms. Ferrer should be served via alternative means. That's what this is supposed to be about, that we can serve her via her attorney and not have to track her down, as her lawyer's requesting when we've now gotten in contact with the lawyer. Miss Ferrer played the role of young Lily in the film. After Miss Ferrer completed her work, she expressed her gratitude, which we read on the last video, how she had an incredible experience and how Justin created a comfortable, safe space for her. This paragraph, they basically talk about, like, I assume, because it's redacted, according to the amended Lively disclosures, she identified, I'm assuming this is personal details or addresses in order to explain why they sent it to the places they sent it to. They then continued in February 2025, Miss Lively issued a subpoena to Miss Ferrer, who was represented by Mr. Michelman. Presumably, Mr. Michelman accepted service of the subpoena on Miss Ferrer's behalf without objection. In July 2025, Wayfarer parties subpoenaed Miss Ferrer for documents that she either neglected to produce or were not requested by Miss Lively's subpoena. Now, this is interesting. Does that mean she did give Blake some stuff, which then Justin now did get from Blake's team? Because you're supposed to share. That's where I am a little unconfused of, well, what do you already have? Now, they're being a little vague on that, to be fair. At the same time, they're allowed to ask, as Ron Zambrano told me, like, this isn't out of the realm of something that's unusual. And sometimes, Blake can take long, and this doesn't guarantee that Blake did, in fact, give everything over, et cetera, et cetera. It's unclear. They're both sort of still hedging on what they've gotten or what they didn't get. Wayfarer parties twice requested that Mr. Michelman accept service of their subpoena, a common professional courtesy that Mr. Michelman likely granted to Miss Lively's counsel in connection with her subpoena. Well, they're assuming that, but I think it's a pretty good assumption. So why are you giving me trouble is basically what they're trying to say. Like, hello, Mr. Michelman ignored the Wayfarer party's requests. Instead, he prepared and filed a robust opposition to the motion for alternative service, most of which does not pertain to service, without explaining why he refused to accept service of the subpoena or why his client is so reticent to testify. Mr. Michelman seems more focused on contractual obligation to indemnify Miss Ferrer and cover his fees. Ironically, Mr. Michelman's actions have unnecessarily increased those fees by creating issues where none should exist. This is imperative too, which Ron also echoed. Like, you're costing her more money to fight it. Just get it over with and just do it. You don't need a lawyer to be, deposed and do this. Just show up and answer. What are you hiding? What are you afraid to say? Like, I'm sure Blake's team would swoop you up if you want to be on her case. And if you don't, you go on Justin's case. This whole meet in the middle thing, enough already. Enough, girl. You got to make a decision. That's the problem. I don't think anything happened. Or Blake sort of put something in her head that she now thinks, oh yeah, I guess. And now she's stuck in this middle zone. And I still would have been on her side and felt for her. But to allow the lawyers to basically put out a whole press release to destroy Justin over it, shame on you. Shame on you for allowing.
Back in February, Blake Lively pushed harder than anyone expected. She didn't just file motions or broad requests. She went straight for a subpoena aimed directly at Isabela Ferrer. And the question hanging in the air is simple. Why? Out of all the names she could have pulled in, why focus on Ferrer at that exact moment? It wasn't random. It wasn't routine. And it was far too pointed to brush off as legal noise. The timeline here makes it even stranger. The subpoena went out, and at first, Ferrer's lawyer didn't raise alarms. He actually accepted it on her behalf without much fuss. Almost like it was just another line in a stack of documents. But here's where the confusion starts. If it was truly routine, why did things later grind to a halt? Why accept service in February only to shift gears into full resistance a few months later? Something clearly changed, and it didn't change by accident. We're not talking about simple requests like email threads or calendar notes. Blake wasn't asking for a Christmas card list. She wanted very specific documents that might illuminate private exchanges, communications that connected dots nobody was supposed to connect. That's what made it unsettling. These weren't files that could be shrugged off as irrelevant. They were targeted, sharp, and chosen for a reason. So the big question becomes, what actually made it across the table? Ferrer was technically subpoenaed, but did she comply fully? Or did only selective pieces end up in Blake's hands? Imagine if only polished, carefully chosen documents were shared, the kind of evidence that might tilt sympathy squarely in Blake's direction while hiding. The more dangerous pieces that stayed locked away. That suspicion has fed the narrative from day one, and the gossip doesn't stop there. There's already a swirl of chatter suggesting that some of what Ferrer handed over didn't stay sealed for long. People wonder if certain documents slipped through channels and found their way back into Baldoni's orbit, giving him a peek at what Blake planned to use. In Hollywood legal fights, that's not outlandish at all. Discovery wars have a long history of spilling more gossip than anyone bargained for. If everything Farrah handed over was harmless, why the sudden cloak and dagger routine later? Why the wall of resistance after months of silence? That's the shadow trailing behind her subpoena. Whether voluntary or calculated, it planted the seed that Blake wasn't chasing a small witness. She was chasing someone holding a far bigger truth. And then came July, when Wayfair stepped in, demanding clarity from Farrah, and those disputes boiled even hotter.
This is a great response, I gotta say, and he does this brilliant reverse Uno card on this. Props to his attorney, Kevin Fritz, who brought it on this, because, look, this wasn't a good look for Justin at all, and Blake clearly knew it, Isabela clearly knew it, and now, of course, since our reporting yesterday, all the headlines are running into the Justin Baldoni harassed another co-stars. What the sort of anybody who's not paying attention, that's what they're going to take away from this. And that's just so disgusting. I look, I learned how to say this girl's name, Isabela Ferrer. Now I know who you are a little bit more, but not in a good way. I've been defending you. I've backed off from, leave her alone, of course, but girl, what are you doing? What are you doing? If you got an issue with this man, then say it. Don't say it because he's trying to save his career and his reputation. If your text was a lie and it wasn't a safe space, then what are you waiting?
So here's the thing. Everyone keeps asking, why did Isabela Ferrer's lawyer suddenly slam the brakes after months of letting things slide? At first, it looked like he was playing along, taking subpoenas, passing on paperwork, letting the machine grind forward. Then, out of nowhere, he stops. Total refusal. And that lawyer, Mr. Mickelman, doesn't spin. His moves around cooperation are minimal. His playbook is strictly about contracts, fees, and billing hours, almost like the focus wasn't to get to the truth, but to make the process itself the real battle. The most confusing part? Farrah wasn't being asked for anything earth-shattering. At first, these were simple discovery requests, the kind of stuff that usually gets passed over with little drama. A few records here, a few communications there. But every single request, no matter how small, suddenly morphed into tense disputes that dragged on for weeks. What should have cost a few thousand in time suddenly ballooned into 5 figures in legal fees, and the delays only made people more suspicious. So why fight so hard to stall? If Farrah really had nothing damaging in her hands, that's where it starts to look strange. Gossip in the legal circle says outright this wasn't about some noble effort to protect her rights. Some are whispering that the refusal wasn't even about principles at all. It was about buying time, plain and simple. The longer Farrah stayed tied up in paperwork limbo, the safer Blake looked. The longer Baldoni was forced to fork out cash, the less likely damaging testimony would surface. Think about it. Farrah was hanging in legal limbo. Baldoni's camp was footing a rising bill, and witnesses who could have cracked holes in Blake's case were stalled on the sidelines. That doesn't look random. It looks rehearsed. And here's where eyebrows start shooting up. Suddenly, Mickelman's calculated refusal looks less like a bland legal maneuver and more like a shield. The kind of shield designed not just to slow things down, but to keep Farrah's role, and whatever she really knows, sealed shut. Every block subpoena, every dragged-out dispute fed into one simple suspicion. Farrah isn't an outsider here. If she were just a side character, there wouldn't be this level of resistance. And the longer Mickelman played his refusal card, the more people began to ask, what exactly is worth hiding? Because whatever it is, it was enough to convince Baldoni's lawyers that playing fair wasn't going to cut it anymore. And that's when they decided to flip the entire game in a direction no one could have predicted.
Now, it might be your lawyer's fault, to be fair, and leave her alone. Don't go bother her on social media. But look at these headlines. It's crazy now. And some of them at least include the subpoena part of it, so people can go, well, how is that harassment? I mean, this isn't harassment. What Blake is doing with all her 100+ subpoenas to content creators, that's harassment in my opinion. She knows she can't go after content creators. She's not going after people in TMZ and real outlets, because if they did, they'd reveal, I remember Harvey Levin of TMZ literally said it, you both have talked to me, so don't you dare bring me into this battle. He kind of threatened them both, like, you want me to expose you both? Because I can. Obviously, both sides have been there marketing defenses. That's what they do.